Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video, I'm going to give my reading wrap-up for the week of October 12th through October 19th. I completed 3 books this week, so I'm going to give reviews for those books. I am reading other books for the Spooky Scary Skeleton 2024 Halloween Readathon by Nicole at Nicole's Bookish Nook. I'm going to do a separate video where I talk about where I am so far in this readathon. Early next week, hopefully release on Tuesday. There is one book that I'm reading for both Nicole's readathon and for Tia Chu's book club on Fable. So that book I'll talk about a little bit here because I'm reading it for both of those events. I did get 2 new books this week, so I'll talk briefly about those. I'll talk about a Wobble I'm working on, and the next one I'm going to be working on, and probably some other things going on in my life. The first book I completed this week is Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. This is a horror novel set in the Western beauty industry. It is narrated in the first person by a woman who is the daughter of Chinese immigrants. She never uses her given name in the book. Later in the book she does select a name, but she never uses her own name. She was a very promising pianist. She was able to go to a prestigious academy for it. Due to an accident her parents had, she stopped playing. And at the beginning of the book she's working in a restaurant, and a woman who later turns out to be the owner of a company called Holistic comes into the restaurant and suggests that the narrator may want to come work for her company and to come to the company the next day, which the narrator does, and she is hired in that company. This company is like a high-end beauty lifestyle company. They create and sell supplements, creams. They sell treatments for people. As the book goes on, it starts to seem kind of more and more kind of cult-like, this company, and more sinister. I thought this book was a really good horror novel set in the real world. It has some commentary on how Western beauty standards are the ones that prevail and people aspire to, even those who are immigrants like the narrator. There were some very thrilling, tense parts as the book went on. The book does have some disturbing stuff in it. There is some SA scenes. There is some body horror. There are some other disturbing things in it. I do recommend this book to someone who wants to read a horror novel set in the real world, which is also a commentary on the beauty industry. As I said, there's some very thrilling parts to it, and as the book comes to its conclusion, the action really ramps up, and it's really, really tense. My only proviso would be take into consideration the things I said about the concerns. If those are concerns of yours, you may not want to read the book, or at the very least read content warnings. I thought this was a great book. This book wasn't on the book that I'm reading for Nicole's readathon, but it certainly could have been because it's a very effective horror novel. I rated it 5 stars. There is some bad bullying in this book too. Especially there's a very disturbing bullying scene early in the book when the narrator is at the music academy she's training in. So that's something else to be concerned about. Yeah, many would find that disturbing. Well, most people find it disturbing. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to read scenes like that. The next book I completed is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a YA mystery thriller. It's set in a small Connecticut town. It's told sometimes in the first person and sometimes in third person POV by the main character Pippa. It's the summer before her senior year in high school, and in this high school you have to do a senior project. The project she decides to do is to look into a disappearance, presumed murder, that occurred 5 years ago. A popular girl had disappeared, and not too long after, the police suspected her boyfriend of the disappearance. He soon unalived himself, and the police determined that, at least to their satisfaction, he was the murderer. They did later declare the girl who disappeared dead, so it became a murder. Her body was never discovered, though. So Pippa, with the aid of the younger brother of the boy who unalived himself, tries to get to the bottom of what happened. It's quite thrilling. I found the solution to the mystery satisfying. There is teen murder in this book. There is bullying. There is racism. There is sexual harassment. There is a parent who emotionally abuses his children. There is harm to an animal, and there is off-page essay. I recommend this book to anyone who's looking for a really good YA mystery thriller. My proviso would be take into consideration the issues I mentioned, and if there's something that would be too disturbing to you, you may not want to read the book. Take a look at the content warnings. But I found this a very thrilling book. Hard to put down. I rated it 5 stars. The third book I completed this week was Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. This is a book that I was reading as part of the I'm With a Band book club, moderated by MJ. This is a dystopian novel that's set not too far in the future. It's told in the first person by Snowman, who's also known as Jimmy. Snowman after a catastrophe occurred, Jimmy before. The book moves back and forth. When the book starts, it's in the current times for Snowman, so you know something really bad happened. And then it moves back and forth from starting when he was a youth and forward. He didn't have a very good upbringing. His parents provided him with material means, but they were basically there, but they were kind of absent parents. So he didn't get the affection and love from his parents he should have. They would both forget his birthday. Society at that time is really stratified. There are compounds where there are corporations, scientific corporations trying to do various things. And there's what's called the plebeians, which is where most of the people live. There is really strong security forces here. It's a scientifically advanced time, but for my mind, morally bankrupt. Jimmy meets a fellow student called Crake, and they form a friendship. There's only one other main character, Oryx. I don't think YouTube would allow me to say how they eventually became aware of Oryx, but it does give me the opportunity to say that, just as a warning, this book has some very serious harm done to children. As I said, I don't think YouTube will let me say exactly what happened, but just as a warning, I'll mention it again later, but serious harm is done to children in this book. The book progresses gradually in the time before this catastrophe to show what happened. There's a lot of what I would call people playing God. There's a lot of genetic experimentation going on. And I won't say what happened that precipitated basically the end of civilization, because that would be a spoiler. The book is really hard to read, but it's also quite interesting, quite fascinating. And I will say that I think Margaret Atwood, this is the first Margaret Atwood book I've ever read. And I think she does a really great job, especially with the scenes with the child I mentioned, Oryx. She only tells enough that you know what happened without being at all unnecessarily graphic. So I think she does a great job with that. In addition to the harm done to children, there's harm done to animals, there's security really, to my mind, overreaching what security should be able to do. I didn't particularly like Jimmy all that much, and I didn't like Crake at all. I did like Oryx. Typically, if I don't like the lead character, that can be a reason I'm just not going to like the book. I think it shows the skill of Margaret Atwood that I did. Even though I didn't particularly like Jimmy, I did sympathize with him. I understood issues he had, but there were certain traits of his character that I just didn't like at all. As I said, it is fascinating though, especially the parts of it where you actually see the civilization collapsing. It is kind of interesting. The kind of scary thing is that the events described in the book, I could see them happening. And I could see them happening in the not distant future too. I really only had 2 issues with the book besides the disturbing scenes, but one was that I didn't always quite understand the motivations of Crake. And the other is that I didn't like the ending at all. I can't say what happened, but I just didn't like it. This is the first of 3 books. But there was an excerpt from the second book at the end of the book I was reading, the version of the book I was reading, and it didn't pick up right from where this book left off. It picked up with a different character. I would like to read them at some point, but I have so many books to read now. I don't do very good at reading sequels or reading series. I rated this book 4.5 stars, and the only reason I went to below a 5 is because I didn't like the ending. I wish I could say why, but that'd be a spoiler, so I don't want to say that. But it is a really good book, and Margaret Atwood I certainly heard of, but she wasn't on my radar. So I'm glad I finally read a Margaret Atwood book. The one other book I want to talk about a little bit that I'm currently reading is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. Talk about this here because although I am reading it as part of Nicole's readathon, I'm also reading it as part of the Tia Chu's book club. I am enjoying this book, although it's not quite what I thought it was. What I thought it was a kind of a found family story. A witch goes to train 3 other witches, and she's taken in by the family, and I thought that was going to be the main focus of the book, and that is part of it, but it's actually a big part of it a romance, and I wasn't expecting that. And the romance is a slow burn romance. It's kind of, but it's the slow burn. The pacing of it makes sense from a perspective of the time frame talked about in the book, which is only a few months, but reading about it sometimes seems to drag on a little bit. There's also a scene I can't say because it'd be a spoiler, but there was a scene late in the book. I don't have too much left. I'll probably be done with it today. But there was a scene late in the book which was kind of jarring, which I didn't really think fit in with the tone of the book. But I am enjoying it. We'll see what I end up rating it, but right now it's probably going to be a 3.54 stars. Worthwhile read. And there are 2 new books I got this week. Strictly speaking, they're books that I had read before and had to return to Libby, and my new hold came through. The first is The Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin Tan. This is an audiobook. I listened to 5 hours of the 15 hours where I had to return it. This book is a fantasy novel I'll talk more about it in later videos when I start reading again. It's been a few months since I read it, so kind of gotta catch up what it's about. I start out where I left off. I won't go back to the beginning, but my memory's a little hazy about what it was about. And the second book is Normal People by Sally Rooney. That book I had read 88% of. I just couldn't quite finish it in time. It's a very popular book. I'm struggling a little bit because I don't particularly like the two main characters, but it's well written, so I guess I'm glad I'm reading it, but I don't get out of it what a lot of people get out of it, at least from what I've heard. Next I want to talk about a Wobble I completed. It is Luna the Bat. This is one of the Halloween Wobbles I'm working on. The second one I did. The first was Snooky the Ghost. I'm quite happy with the way this one came out. The ears came out good. They're attached well. The wings, you can see the wings on the side, and the mouth and the fangs came out good too. So I'm pretty happy with how Luna the Bat came out. And the next one that I'm going to start working on probably later today, another Halloween one is Salem the Cat. Another purple one like Luna. Hopefully I'll have this one done next week for my next wrap up. This week, besides what I listen to when I'm driving around in my car, the only music I really listen to was I listened to a bunch of songs by One Direction on Spotify. Listen to that because one of the members, Ling this past week died in a tragic accident. He fell from a third-story balcony in Buenos Aires, Brazil. Not sure the details, there's a lot of rumors, but it just made me kind of sad. I didn't like too many boy bands, but I like One Direction a lot. They're kind of a magic band for me. In the early 2010s, I saw them 8 times, so band that means a lot to me. When I finally get back to doing my music videos, I'll eventually get to the 2010s. And I will get back to them, but the music videos are kind of more work to make than the book videos. But I was listening to a lot of One Direction songs, and rest in peace to Liam Payne. Other than that, I've been watching the WNBA Finals. The finals are going to go to the 5th game, the final game, which takes place tomorrow night. It's been a really thrilling series. All close games, going back and forth. Other than that, I walked a couple times at the local mall, watched a lot of YouTube videos, did a lot of reading. So far, it's been a great reading month. I think this is going to probably end up being the best reading month this year, possibly my best reading month ever, but there's still some time to go to make sure if that's the case, but it's a really good one so far. I'd be interested to know how your reading week went. What books you read, books you specifically enjoyed, anything else going on with you, anything else going on that you'd be interested in telling me, please reply in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. I hope you have a wonderful reading week, and I hope you have a wonderful week in general.